I'm going to be showing you this cheetah nail design that I have on myself. The thumb is definitely the most impressive one, so we're going to start there when we get into the tutorial. But I'm also going to be showing you some brushes that I just received and I'm being paid to review them. And if you want to see my brutally honest review, all of my opinions, I really hold nothing back. Definitely continue to watch and listen for that, and I'll give you just some tips on purchasing brushes and kind of the things that I always look for when I am looking to purchase new brushes. I hope that'll help you guys out, and don't forget to click subscribe to my future videos as well.
So here's the first brush I'm going to be showing you. This is the Kolinsky brush. Really cool box. That holographic lettering is really pretty. Here is the brush, and it's pink, which is obviously the most important thing when you are buying a new brush, is to make sure that it is pink. No, it is not. Do not follow that rule at all. The first thing when I'm looking for an acrylic brush is I want a metal handle. I want to metal everything besides the bristles. Kolinsky is what you want for bristles. I have seen where some people look at vegan brushes and have had luck with them. I personally have not had any luck with vegan brushes. And if you know my lifestyle, which you probably don't, I am a super huge advocate for veganism and vegetarianism. And this is one of the few places in my life where I have not been able to switch things up to be a little bit more, conscientious of stuff. So like I said, that's just one of those things. Kolinsky is kind of the way to go. The first time you pick up a brush, it has this cornstarch mixture in it that makes it so that it's very stiff. You want to work all of that out. So put a glove on your hand and then just start kind of gently massaging it out. After you get the first good amount of it out, and this is, like I said, for any new acrylic brush, the first time you get that first big chunks out, then you can kind of gently, even if take the end of your finger and flick the bristles, hold it up against a lamp to see if you can see little particles coming out. As long as you can see particles coming out, keep cleaning the brush. You don't want any of that stuff in there, or it'll clog up your brush right away, and it'll make it so that it is completely solid the first time you dip it in monomer. You don't want that to happen. So keep just working these bits out. As you can see, there's quite a bit in this particular brush. They really made sure that it had enough to hold its shape. We're just going to keep kind of easing all of those pieces out of the brush. Like I said, when I'm shopping for an acrylic brush, you want to look for a metal handle. I also like to look for one that is crimped. This one's not, but theoretically you could crimp it yourself. I tried and it did not do it. I'm going to sculpt this an overlay, a fill over my nail. I did not enjoy this brush. I found that the bristles started to split right away. They are too stiff. They did not conform to the nail. So instead of floating over the acrylic and smoothing it into place, it kind of grabbed it and pulled it, which was not the goal. And I actually did not use it to fill the other nails on my hand. I went back to my tried and true brush and I put this one to the side because I just could not get over it. With that being said, now we can look at the other brushes in this set. There is 5 dual-sided brushes. The first one was a gel sculpting brush on one side, a 3D sculpting brush on the other. This one is an ombre brush, and then what they call a stroke brush, which is just a really flat brush. I also would use that one for doing a gel sculpting instead of the rounder one. And then there is this one. These are, all of the rest of them are written in millimeters from 5 millimeters to, I think it might be 20. The 5 millimeter is the smallest. These are very little brushes that are theoretically good for doing detail painting. We will get more into that in a moment. When you're looking for gel painting brushes or painting brushes like these, a fully metal handle isn't as crucial because the monomer just dissolves everything else on a brush, on an acrylic sculpting brush. So you don't want anything else because it makes plastic sticky and it makes the paint on a painted handle dissolve. So you just want fully metal for that. Otherwise though, for painting like this, that's not as necessary. On my thumbnail, I'm going to begin just by applying a gorgeous blush pink color over the top of the entire nail. And then I'm going to grab the 9 millimeter, I believe, the 9 millimeter brush, and I'm going to clean up just the perimeter, kind of tuck it in, make sure it gets all the way around the proximal fold in the sidewalls. And then after that's done, I'm going to cure that, apply a second coat, repeat the process. And then using that same brush, I'm going to paint my cheetah's face. I'm going to do just the very start of this face shape, kind of get the basics down on my cheetah face. And this is with a really warm tan color. As I was working with these brushes and getting a feel for them, this is the first time I've used them. I do have a couple notes that I want to mention. I found that the bristles to be a little too large in circumference. Each individual hair was a bit too thick. And what that does is it makes it so that the brush doesn't have as much flexibility as what I look for. When I'm painting with gel specifically, it isn't like other types of paint, like acrylic paint, for instance, or oil for sure, where the paint itself has a lot of body to it. It has a lot of stability. So as you are painting with it, you want to almost push the paint onto the surface sometimes of what you're painting, and the brushes can be stiff because they're working the paint down. They're pushing it down. With gel paint, it is, or gel polish, even more so with gel polish. With gels, the product doesn't hold itself. It will move on its own sometimes depending on what you're using. And if you push too hard, instead of, laying a color down, you're just going to pick it right back up. So the product is not going to flow onto the nail. It isn't going to be nicely deposited. You need a very soft brush in order to do that, because otherwise you're just going to put the paint down. It's going to come right back off. And I did notice that with these. It might not be something that you can even necessarily see very well in the video. There's a couple places where I was using white where I really noticed that it was doing that. It's something that is more of a what you're used to all of a sudden it didn't work kind of a thing with the paint. It's like, this should do what I'm telling it to do, but it's not. Even with that little black line I just did underneath the eye, it wasn't opaque. And with black gel paint, things are usually just bam, they're opaque, they're ready. And with this, it didn't quite get there with the speed and the ease that I'm used to. I do want to mention though that this is a review that is specifically in regards to using these brushes with gel products. However, in the world of nail art, you don't necessarily exclusively use gel products. Sometimes you use acrylic paint. And if that's the case, if you're using acrylic paint, you actually want a stiffer brush. You do want one that has a little bit more body to it. And in that circumstance, these brushes could very well be a great set for you because, like I said, there's a ton of sizing and you can really feel what size brush works for you. You can get a little bit more of an experimentation in with it because there's so much variety. And, that element on its own is definitely worth something. And so if you are not exclusively gel, or you maybe want to try using acrylic paint, maybe this is a good starter brush set for you. In general, it is actually a very good starter brush set because it does have a lot of variety to it. It's compact, and it's one that, you can get an idea. You can practice painting with it. For me, especially if I'm working on clients or something, ease and speed are really important to me. And this brush does make things, or these brush sets do make things a little more time consuming because maybe something needs a second coat that didn't need a second coat before, or even just I have to move a little slower so I make sure I don't scoop the paint back up off of the nail. And in that respect, I'm not super impressed with these. The other thing that's a downfall when you have thicker bristles is when you start loading a brush with gel. And this is something that whenever you're painting with gel, you want to do. You want to try to load your brush up so that the bristles get the color up almost all the way to the metal hilt. So you have gel in your brush. You load your brush. And then when you're using it, you don't get that little ball of paint that's slightly off the end of the bristles. And if you've ever experienced this, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Is when you dip your brush into gel and it's not a loaded brush and you have this tip of the bristles, and then all of a sudden it's got this nice little bit of paint on it. Then all of a sudden the gel scooches together and it creates this ball that's not at the end of the brush, this big glob of paint. So then when you go to paint with it, you go to make this line, you get nothing, and then all of a sudden that glob of paint falls onto what you're working on and you get this huge blob. That happens with these brushes because they're not thin enough where you can easily load the brush. That's not something you have to do with acrylic paint. This is a gel specific problem. And so, like I said a moment ago, if you aren't planning to use these with gel, they're probably a fantastic brush set. I personally was like, we're going to paint some cheetahs with gel here today. And I was using, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a tough one. So there is my 2 cents on this particular issue. And hopefully that knowledge of why gel sometimes does that helps people. I know when I've mentioned it in the past, I've had some people that have come to me later and been like, you just blew my mind because I never knew why gel did that. And I've always hated gel for that reason. If that's the case, try loading your brush, see if that helps. You can even load it with not your color. Just have like a baseline of gel in your brush. That's what I usually do. Clean them occasionally, but have some clear gel that just kind of lives in the bristles. It'll make a big difference. On my thumbnail, I went through with all of these layers of color, some lighter, some darker, some orange tones. I did black outlines, white, whiskers, etc., etc. And then on my middle nail, I'm going to be adding the cheetah in a running pose. On the index nail next to it, I continued the cheetah's butt and flared it out. Then I'm going to be applying a layer of matte gel top coat over the top of these nails. And after that's done, I'm going to grab some inks, some alcohol inks, and I'm going to blob down some different colors. I'm using a kind of a goldenrod yellow, some metallic gold, some metallic bronze, and then some black. And then using just a clear ink, I'm going to spread it out. As you can see in this process, I am getting ink on my skin. Unlike gel products, it isn't that big a deal to get some ink on your skin. After you wash your hands once, it'll just come off pretty easily, or once or twice maybe. And it's not something like gel that is toxic. It's like having rubbing alcohol on your hand. Not that you necessarily want to just dip your hands in rubbing alcohol, but let's face it, we sanitize our hands about 35 times a day as people nowadays. So it's there. That completes nails 1, 2, and 3. For the ring nail, I'm going to start out with that stroke brush in my pink, and I'm going to create a nice straight line. Worked really well for that. That brush worked beautifully for that purpose. I have this black polka dot gel that I'm going to be using on the tip over the top of the pink. And then I'm going to take actually one of my alcohol inks, and I'm going to be painting a stripe. This is the bronzy color. When you are doing something with alcohol ink, you do have to make sure when you're top coating it that you float the top coat so that you don't reactivate that alcohol ink and make it streaky or splotchy. And that goes for top coating it no matter where it is. So even on top of the nails that the alcohol ink is splotched out, you still want to be very careful when you're applying something over the top of it so you don't make it all streaky. I'm going to use that same polka dot gel over the pinky nail that has all of just the cheetah colors, and then some glossy gel top coat over the top of my index finger and my pinky, and then matte over the 2 cheetah nails, thumb, middle, and then matte top coat over that the ring finger that has the polka dots and the stripe. I'm going to apply some jewelry gel right in the middle of the stripe, and then some gel sealer or gel top coat right over the top of the stripe, up and over the top of the jewelry gel. And then I'm going to take that same gel top coat and just kind of splash out where the cheetah is bursting from the index nail, and then I'll place a gold stud right in the middle of the stripe. And then this set's done. I really do like it. I love that the thumb is kind of the highlight of this set. I always look at my thumbs, when you're typing on your phone or you're, writing notes, you always see your thumbs first. So I like that the thumb is kind of the special one here. I hope you guys like it as much as I do, and don't forget to click subscribe to see my future videos as well.